Imagine being forced to sign a prenup by your future in-laws, who openly call you unworthy. You swallow your pride, you build an empire, and then, years later, when you're worth 5 times more than they are, these same people suddenly want to dissolve the contract, claiming you don't love their daughter enough. Can you believe the absolute audacity? This isn't just a story about money. It's about a family trying to weaponize it, and what happens when you finally push back. 8 years ago, I married the woman I loved. But before that, her parents made me sign a prenup. It felt like a slap in the face. They'd already made it painfully clear I wasn't really welcome in their family, so this just twisted the knife. When I met my wife, I was in sales. After a year together, I decided to quit my job and start my own electronics brand. We were both 27. My wife was incredibly supportive. She was ecstatic when I started chasing my dream. Her parents? Not so much. They thought I was living off her money, which, to some extent, was true. She was definitely supporting us while I had no steady income, but I wasn't completely relying on her. At 29, I proposed. We got married a year later. But a couple of months before the wedding, her parents sat me down. "You need to sign this prenup," they said. It stated that in a divorce, all our assets and money would be separate. I couldn't claim anything of hers, and she couldn't claim anything of mine. And here's the really insulting part. I would also have to repay my wife and them for having supported me while I built my business. They'd occasionally sent money to my wife to help us out, and this was their way of reminding me I was indebted to them. I think they added the clause about my wife not claiming my assets just to make it seem fair. The agreement even specified how joint account money would be divided based on contribution because they just assumed my wife would always be supporting me. When they presented it, they said, "This is the only way we'll feel safe accepting you as our son-in-law." It was insulting on so many levels. First, they assumed I'd always be a leech, never make anything of myself. Unfair considering I was working my tail off to get my business off the ground. Second, they never liked me. Not even before I quit my sales job. From the moment my wife first brought me home, they thought I wasn't good enough. And by good, I mean rich. My in-laws run a real estate firm. Wealthy. From financially privileged backgrounds themselves. My parents had normal jobs. My dad was a high school football coach. My mom managed a coffee shop. I didn't struggle with money, but I definitely didn't have their kind of money. They looked down on me constantly. Snarky remarks. Mean comments disguised as jokes. An insufferable, weird attitude. I never said a word, even though my wife got worked up about it. I didn't want them to know. They got under my skin. I believed the best way to deal with them was to ignore them. My wife loved me. I loved her. That was enough. I didn't need their approval. So, when they presented the prenup, I felt insulted, but I signed it. My wife was offended too, but we talked about it, and she signed without complaint. We both knew their game. They were trying to humiliate me, sideline me, hoping I'd back off. They wanted their daughter with someone more appropriate by their standards. Unfortunately for them, they haven't been able to do that. And they never will. My wife and I are always on the same team. That was years ago. Since then, my career has soared. My business grew, and in the last 2 years, it exploded. Exponentially. All of a sudden, the social media marketing, the hard work, it all paid off. Something worked. As of now, I'm worth almost 5 times more than my in-laws. And now, of course, they want to dissolve the prenup. All of a sudden. A couple of days ago, they visited. We were having dinner, and after our son was in bed, they sat us down. "We've been thinking," they said, "it's time to speak to our lawyers and have the prenup dissolved." My wife looked surprised. I was taken aback for a second. Then I declined. Right to their faces. I told them I didn't think it was necessary. After all, they themselves had claimed the prenup was the only way they'd feel safe accepting me as their son-in-law. And I wouldn't want them to lose that safety. I was dripping with sarcasm, trying to sound sincere. They got it. They told me years had passed. We had a son now, no reason for doubts. I still declined. "I'm not open to discussing this anymore." That's when they got agitated. It was our idea to have the prenup. Now you should respect what we say and have it dissolved. We're older, more experienced. You should take our advice to avoid bitterness in the future." I had no idea what they were even talking about. After some bickering, I told them I had no interest in talking about it. My wife and I had no plans for divorce. They should drop it. But they refused. It turned into a full-blown fight. All the drama we'd swept under the rug for years came bubbling out. I finally brought up how they'd created that prenup just to humiliate me, to remind me I wasn't in their tax bracket. Now that I'd surpassed them, they wanted to pretend none of that ever happened. Their counterargument? They just wanted their daughter's future to be secure, in case I turned out to be a gold-digging husband who'd leech off her. They wanted her to have a safety net. They were just looking out for their daughter. It went on for a while. Eventually, I was too tired to argue. "I'm done," I said. "I want you to leave." I thought I was being reasonable. We were getting loud. My son was asleep. It was late. I just wanted them gone. But they took offense. They actually said, "The only reason you're where you are today is because of the support our daughter and we gave you." Oh, I beg to differ. They never supported me. They only ever supported their daughter. Yes, I mentioned they'd occasionally sent money in the beginning, and I'm grateful for that. But it wasn't for me. It was for her. We could have easily survived without their help. I had savings. The only times they sent money was when my wife asked for it, specifically for her own purposes when household expenses ran short. I'd offered to dip into my savings multiple times, but she said no, her parents had the money, and they wouldn't have an issue. So, technically, they supported us, but it was always for their daughter. They never had any faith in me. And emotional support? Let's not even go there. They never made me feel like family. They had no right to claim my success was thanks to them. I could have done it without them. They had no role to play. When I said that, they started yelling even louder. The fight escalated. They thought I was ungrateful. At one point, they turned to my wife. "You need to make a choice now," they told her. "We've supported your relationship long enough, but this is getting out of hand." He refuses to acknowledge our contributions. Somehow, my wife managed to get them to leave. We haven't spoken since. She's stayed in touch with her parents, trying to get them to apologize, even though I've told her I just want them to stay away from me. They can visit her, have a relationship with our son. But I need space. I'm not interested in repairing things right now. That fight was a long time coming. I'm surprised we avoided it for so long. Now it's done, and I want them gone. But then, I recently learned something from my wife. While she was trying to convince them to apologize to me, they were trying to brainwash her into divorcing me. Last evening, she came to me, phone in hand. She looked upset. She'd been trying to get things back to normal for our son's sake, and honestly, for the family peace. But after reading those messages, I'm not so sure anymore. They refused to acknowledge they'd ever treated me badly. They acted like they had every right. They defended their behavior and accused me of being ungrateful for their support, which, again, I don't think ever truly existed for me. And then they suggested my wife should rethink her marriage, consider divorce before it's too late, because I clearly don't love her enough to respect her family. And because I won't dissolve the prenup, I'm suspicious now that I have some money of my own. It's absolute rubbish. They're trying to brainwash her, but she's not buying it. She's just exhausted trying to talk sense into them. The only thing she does think they have a point on, somewhat, is their financial support in our early days. But I don't feel like acknowledging that because it was clearly only because they didn't want to say no to their daughter. It had nothing to do with me. If my wife had let me, I would have used my savings. We wouldn't have had to rely on them at all. Besides, they always made sure I never felt accepted, treated me like I was only with my wife for the money. So no, I don't feel thankful. Edit asterisk, I actually don't have an issue dissolving the prenup. My wife and I recently made some big purchases, and they're under my name. It's not a big deal for her or me. We love each other. We'll make it work. We're not even fighting now. My wife just mentioned their opinion, and I'm considering it. Divorce is definitely not on the table for us. It's just the timing that got to me. Even now, they still suspect me. They think they care about my wife's best interests, but I don't, which is why they always have to put me down. It's obvious they still haven't accepted me. And that's my issue. As for the money they contributed, I haven't repaid them. But if they ask, I'll pay it back. I haven't offered yet because I didn't think I owed them. My business took off. My wife hasn't had to spend $1 from her own pocket since. I think we're even. But if they want it back, I'll gladly do it to get them off my back. Update 1 asterisk. It's been a week since that fight. I've read the comments, mixed opinions, but my mind is made up. I'm going to return all the money. I have an arbitrary figure, and I'm doing well. I don't want to owe them anything, don't want to feel indebted, don't want to worship the ground they walk on. I want to stand up for myself without them throwing this in my face. The only way is to pay them back for every penny they claim to have supported us with. I discussed it with my wife, and she thinks it's a good idea. Her parents haven't stopped trying to brainwash her into filing for divorce, claiming I've disrespected them, even though they've disrespected me and my family countless times. If they can't handle being treated the same way they treat us, they shouldn't have dished it out. I was polite initially. They started bringing up personal stuff going below the belt. They've always been openly against me. So, my behavior was reasonable. After years of suppressing my feelings, trying to be respectful, by paying back the money, I'll owe them absolutely nothing. They've never supported me emotionally, never even pretended to accept me. My wife and I are exhausted. We're hoping a check will solve all our problems. Usually, throwing money at an issue doesn't fix relationships, but with them, they are literally that materialistic and selfish. I can't imagine any other parents trying to ruin their own daughter's marriage, especially with a kid involved, because their ego is more important. It just speaks volumes about how little they actually care for her, despite their pretenses. Update 2 asterisk. Earlier today, my wife told her parents I was ready to write them a check. To end this exhausting situation. To repay them for everything. She hoped it would fix things. Of course, it didn't. They got offended. This isn't about the money, they told my wife. Which is strange because during our fight, it felt all about the money. Now, suddenly, it's about the respect I've never shown them. Insane. I can claim the exact same thing about them. My wife and I are baffled. I have always been polite and civil. They have always had an attitude. I have literally never disrespected them. But they think this one incident, my refusal to acknowledge and be thankful for their support, is equal to years of them taking advantage of my love for their daughter, constantly instigating me and my family, being as disrespectful as possible. It's not the same thing at all. Even my wife agrees now. They didn't support me as much as they claim. And I'm going to pay them back anyway, so I won't owe them anything. We don't see where the problem is. If it's about respect, instead of money, I truly don't owe them anything. Thankfully, they aren't speaking to me right now. They're only interacting with their daughter. And my wife is completely on my side. They're still trying to brainwash her into divorcing me. Now they've started telling her she needs to take our son under her wing. I truly can't imagine resuming a normal relationship with them after all of this. It's pathetic. Ruining our marriage isn't enough. They need my wife to file for custody, all because of their ego. That, right there, is reason enough for me not to respect them at all. This is the kind of treatment I've received since I met my wife. Update 3 asterisk. It's been a little over 2 weeks since that fight. For the past few days, my wife hasn't been responding to them. She thinks it's a lost battle. She tried her best to explain why they were wrong, but they just kept telling her to file for divorce. She got tired of trying to fix it alone. They made it clear they weren't interested in fixing things, so she stopped replying. And that's why they decided to show up at our house today. I opened the door. They ignored me, walked straight in, and started calling for my wife. At this point, I'm not even surprised by their hypocrisy. After accusing me of being disrespectful, they act like this. I said nothing, just waited for my wife. When she came out, she immediately told her parents she wasn't interested in speaking unless they were ready to acknowledge our side. They, predictably, started telling her they were only there to confront her behavior because she was going the same way I did, becoming increasingly disrespectful. If he was indebted to us, so are you, they said. You shouldn't forget that. My wife lost her temper. And rightfully so. She shouted. She was their daughter. She hadn't asked them to do anything. They'd done it out of their own free will. They had no right to hold it against us. If they'd wished, they could have declined. We would have made it work without their help. Other parents do things for their kids out of love, not to throw it in their faces later, like my in-laws. As for gratitude, we tried to be grateful, to show respect despite their ridiculous behavior for years. We stayed quiet, put up with it, didn't want drama, wanted family peace. But now it was impossible not to stand up to them. They needed to realize they couldn't constantly demand respect. Sometimes they had to earn it, and this was one of those times. My wife argued with them for a long time. I just stood in the corner, not interacting. When she started getting agitated, I went to her side to calm her. My in-laws started freaking out, blaming me for all of this, claiming it all started because of my refusal to dissolve the prenup. I had to correct them. No, I said. This didn't start because of that. This started when you decided you were going to treat me badly just because I wasn't from the same circle of rich kids you expected your daughter to pick. That's what they've been mad about for all these years. That's why they treated me badly. I put up with it, but they couldn't get away with it forever. They needed to know I wouldn't be their puppet. That's why I refused to dissolve the prenup. Things got even more heated with me involved. But I kept my cool. They kept shouting, saying horrible things, cursing me out, trying to make me mad. I refused to let them get under my skin. That just made them more upset. Finally, they realized they couldn't get to me. They turned to my wife. You need to seriously choose between your family and him. And she declared it. She was going to choose her family, which meant her husband and her son. She told her parents to get out of her house, that they'd be receiving the check soon, and after that, we'd be done and dusted. Her parents were shocked. They clearly hadn't expected that reaction. They probably thought they'd get another chance, like always. But no. My wife and I had had enough. When they tried to argue more, my wife told them she'd call the police and have them arrested if they didn't leave immediately. And they finally left. After that, we blocked them everywhere. We are finally cutting them out of our lives. It's going to be hard to explain to our son why he can't see his grandparents anymore, but it's fine. He has another set of grandparents who love him just as much. Maybe in the future, we'll reconcile. But for now, this has to be done. We tried really hard to make things work with them, but they only want things on their terms. That's not possible anymore. I'm honestly glad I took a stand for myself, and so did my wife. Some things had to be addressed, and we are very happy we've dealt with the situation now. What do you think? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family, especially when they tried to use money or manipulate you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below.